My teenage daughter screamed at me in court. The words hit me like a blade pressed against the chest. "You were never there for us. Mom's boyfriend is our real dad now." My daughter's voice cracked in the courtroom, but her fury was sharpened into each syllable. She pointed at me as if I were a stranger, no, worse, an intruder who had stolen her childhood. The judge adjusted his glasses, unimpressed but attentive. My wife smirked. Her new partner leaned back, arms folded, smug, as though the verdict had already been written. I didn't flinch. Not when she said it. Not when my daughter's eyes, the same eyes I once carried across a hospital parking lot in the rain, narrowed at me as though I were the enemy. I let them speak, let them twist the knife deeper. Because the truth was folded in my jacket pocket, pressed between my fingers like a secret waiting to detonate. It hadn't begun here, in this courtroom. It began in whispers. A locked phone, a faint cologne that wasn't mine. My wife's laugh at messages she never let me see. At first, I dismissed it. Years of marriage teach you to overlook. You convince yourself that silence is strength, that loyalty will endure. But then my daughter stopped answering my calls. She avoided me with precision, like a soldier carrying out orders. Her words, when spoken, were carefully rehearsed, lines written by someone else. "Mom says you're too busy. Mom says he takes care of us now. Mom says—" Her voice broke off. She glanced away. And I knew. The betrayal wasn't just hers. It had been orchestrated, cultivated. A new man in my daughter's life, replacing me piece by piece until I became invisible. I remember sitting in the dark that night, phone in hand, scrolling through months of call logs, bank statements, hotel receipts. My wife had been meticulous, but not enough. Lies always leave residue, and I was patient. I became two men. The silent husband who nodded during dinners, who signed documents, who smiled at neighbors. And the observer, cataloging everything she thought I never saw. When she left her phone on the counter, I memorized numbers. When she told me she was at a meeting, I drove quietly, watching the way her car vanished into a different driveway. But it wasn't anger that guided me. Anger is reckless. It was calculation. I ordered the DNA kit after a particularly cold dinner where my daughter refused to look at me. Her face was carved with resentment she hadn't earned herself. She clung to the boyfriend's hand at a school event, calling him Dad loud enough for me to hear. I swabbed quietly. A toothbrush, a hair from her brush. No one noticed. Then I waited. Days stretched like taut wire. On the outside, I was calm. I asked about homework, bills, groceries. Inside, I felt the wire humming, ready to snap. When the envelope arrived, I placed it on my desk, unopened, for hours. Because once I looked, there would be no undoing. It was late when I slit the seal. The house was quiet, except for the faint laughter spilling from the bedroom down the hall. I read the report once, twice, 3 times. Probability of paternity 0.0%. I felt nothing, not rage, not grief, nothing but the quiet click of certainty falling into place. My daughter, the one who screamed at me in the courtroom, the one whose first steps I had filmed, whose nightmares I had soothed, was not mine. And the night she was conceived, my wife had told me she was away visiting her mother. I folded the paper, slid it back into the envelope. Then I walked into the bedroom, where she and her lover lay laughing over some joke they hadn't bothered to hide. I didn't confront, didn't shout. I simply placed the envelope on the dresser, turned, and walked out. Her laughter died before I reached the door. And now, here, in this courtroom. The judge had just ruled in her favor. She had won custody, the house, the accounts. My daughter's scream still hung in the air like smoke. My wife laughed, triumphant, as if years of deception had been crowned legitimate by law. That was the moment I reached into my jacket. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I placed the photo on the table, A single image, grainy but unmistakable, taken the night my wife had sworn she was at her mother's, the night my daughter was conceived. The boyfriend's face, her arms around him. The courtroom went still. My daughter's breath hitched. She stared at the photo, then at me, confusion unraveling into horror. "That's from the night Mom said she was—" The words caught in her throat. The judge leaned forward. My wife's laughter froze, then cracked. The bailiff moved first, then the police officer at the door. She tried to protest, but the evidence was already on record. Fraud, perjury, decades of lies collapsing in real time. And I sat there, silent, watching as the world she built on betrayal crumbled piece by piece. They led her out in handcuffs. Her boyfriend sat motionless, his confidence dissolving into ash. My daughter cried, not for me, not for him, but for the sudden vacuum where her certainty had once been. I felt no triumph, no joy, only quiet clarity. I was not her father. I was never her husband. I was the ghost they had fed on until there was nothing left. But ghosts have one advantage. They see everything. As I stood to leave, the judge called my name. I didn't turn. Some battles are won not by speaking, but by walking away. And as the courtroom door closed behind me, the silence was mine.